2. Your student wants to drop Anthro 209. This is an example of a simple drop request for a class within our subject areas. The enrollment request status for the drop will be success. Please note that for this example, we have remained on the same enrollment request that we used in example 1 to enroll our student in Anthro 305. Once again, we will zoom into the form as indicated by the blue rectangle to make the example easier to see. To create a second enrollment in the same enrollment request, simply select the plus sign to create a new enrollment. Notice that the form seems to have cleared all the values from our first enrollment request. That first enrollment is still on the form, but it is now hidden behind the new enrollment that we will be working on. You can think of the enrollment actions as index cards, with only one card visible at a time, except if you're in View All mode, which we'll talk about shortly, and one card per enrollment. The enrollment for Anthro 305 is on its own card, hidden behind the blank card that we're going to use for the drop enrollment. The sequence number 2 indicates that we are viewing the second enrollment action of the request. The status at the top of the enrollment form indicates success. This is because this status applies to all the enrollment actions in the request. The overall status is currently indicating success because the enrollment that we made for our student into Anthro 305 was successful. Please note that the status of our current enrollment action is pending. Here we can see that the enrollment request details header now says 2 of 2. This indicates that we are looking at the second index card. You can use the blue back arrow to move back one enrollment action, or you can use the first link to go to the first enrollment action index card. The View All link can be used to display all the enrollment actions on the same page at once. Let's click View All now. Here is the big picture view of an enrollment request form with 2 enrollment actions in View All mode. The top section of the enrollment request is the enrollment action that we did to enroll into Anthro 305. The bottom section of the enrollment request is the enrollment action we will use to drop our student out of Anthro 290. The enrollment request details header now says 1 through 2 of 2. If we select View 1, the enrollment request form will return to displaying only one enrollment action at a time, which is also the default for the form. Let's select View 1 to return to the enrollment action that we had just started. The default enrollment action is Enroll. So let's use the drop-down list to select Drop. There we go. Drop has been selected. Notice how the page changes dynamically. In this case, many fields on the page are now grayed out. If we were to change the enrollment action again, the page would change once more in response. Just like for the enrollment into Anthro 305, we need a class number for this enrollment action. Once again, we will use the magnifying glass next to the class number to find the class our student wishes to drop. We will now see just how wicked smart the magnifying glass can be. The magnifying glass is context sensitive. So this time, instead of opening up the class search page, it will open up the student schedule. Here is our student's class schedule. Technically, as you can see from the title at the top of the page, this is really an enrollment listing. Also near the top of the page is some important information, including the student's name and MPL ID. The term Spring 2020 is also indicated. Here is the class that our student wishes to drop, Anthro 209. It's a little weird, but the way that you select a class from an enrollment listing is to click on the Already Checked checkbox. It is a little confusing, but all the classes shown on the enrollment listing page have a checked checkbox. Apparently, just like the man behind the curtain, we are expected to pay no attention to the checked checkboxes on this page. So we will click on this checkbox for Anthro 209 to select it for drop. See how selecting Anthro 209 from Hermione's class schedule / enrollment listing has populated the class number on the enrollment request page, along with a few other pieces of useful information about the class. I would also like to draw your attention to how the grading basis and units taken fields have been auto-completed. The action is set to drop just as we had already selected it. Now we just have to click on the Submit button, and we can see from the enrollment status of success that the drop was successfully completed. It is extremely important to notice that the enrollment request form is displaying the enroll action for Anthro 305. Why is that? It is because every time you submit the enrollment request form, it resorts the index cards and puts all the enrollment actions back into their original order. The enrollment into Anthro 305 was the first enrollment action that we requested. So as long as we remain on the same enrollment request form, it will always appear at the front of the deck. Notice how the enrollment request details indicates 1 of 2. You can use the right blue arrow to move through the enrollment actions, or click the last link to jump to the last enrollment action on the form. Let's click the last link now. Notice that we are now on enrollment action 2 of 2. The drop action and class Anthro 209 now match what we were expecting to see. Note that the sequence number of this action is 2 and the status is success. The overall request status at the top of the page also indicates success. The enrollment request status applies to all the enrollment actions on the same enrollment request. Here is the big picture view of the drop enrollment request. Once again, we are very happy to see that the error message section on this form is empty. Example 3. Your student wants to enroll in Anthro 100, and you happen to know that this is class number 51165. This class has a required discussion. On our first try, we will not specify that required discussion, which will result in an error. We will then include a required discussion section and try again. Ultimately, the request status for this enrollment will be success. Once again, we will continue with the same enrollment request that we used to enroll our student into Anthro 305 and drop her from Anthro 209. Notice that we are currently on enrollment 2 of 2. To create the third enrollment action in the same enrollment request, once again, we will click the plus sign to create a new blank enrollment action. Notice that we are now in enrollment 3 of 3, and the fields in our index card are blank once again. Just to reiterate, the overall status of the enrollment request is currently success because the first 2 enrollment actions completed successfully. The status of this enrollment action is pending because we haven't finished it yet and clicked submit. The sequence number indicates that this is the third enrollment action in this request. The default action is always enroll, so we don't need to change it. Since we know that the class number is 51165, we can type it into the class number field. If we wish, we can hit the Tab key to see the class information show up on the page. That's probably a good idea so that you can verify that you are working with the correct class. We have specified that we wish to enroll our student in Anthro 100, but we need to specify a related discussion. We will need to specify the discussion in the related class 1 field, but for now, let's leave the related class empty so that we can see the error status and the error messages that result after we click the Submit button. Notice how the status of the overall enrollment request is now errors found. That means that there is an error with one or more of the enrollments on the form. But wait, why does the current enrollment action say success? It is because after hitting the Submit button, the enrollment action index cards have been resorted into their original order. And the first enrollment action, which was to enroll Hermione into Anthro 305, is once again at the front of the deck. Notice that the enrollment action is back to 1 of 3. As mentioned in example 2, we can use the right arrow key to navigate through the enrollment actions to find the third one. Or we can click on the last link to move immediately to the last index card in the stack. Let's click on the last link now. All right, here we are on enrollment 3 of 3. We can see that the class number and class information is for Anthro 100. As we noticed earlier, the overall enrollment request status is errors found. Now that we are on the correct enrollment action, we can see that its status is errors, which is what we would expect. You will probably need to scroll down on the screen to see the error messages box. The error messages can be extremely helpful for diagnosing why the enrollment failed. The error messages that we received tell us that a required related class, a discussion, must also be selected. The related class is specified in the field on the form underneath the class number field. A good way to select a related class is to use the magnifying glass. Once again, we are witnessing the wicked, smart magnificence of the magnifying glass. Look at how it is being all context sensitive and everything, and only pulling up a list of all of the available discussion sections for Anthro 100. Let's suppose that our student wants to take class section 01AB. To select the correct discussion section, simply click on any part of its row in the search results. And voila! See how the correct discussion section has been added to the enrollment request. Here's the class, Anthro 100. Now the enrollment request status has been set to pending. No surprise, the enrollment action status is still set to pending. Let's click on the Submit button and see what happens. Ta-da! We are happy to see that the enrollment request status has returned to success. Once again, we have been returned to enrollment action 1 of 3, despite the fact that we were working on enrollment 3 of 3. As always, you can use the blue arrows or the last link to move through the enrollments. Here we are back to enrollment 3 of 3, Anthro 100 with related discussion section. Our third enrollment action status has changed from errors to success. The overall enrollment request status has also changed back to success. As we saw in example 2, you can click on View All to see all the enrollment actions on one screen. On most computers, you will need to scroll up and down to see the entire enrollment request form. Let's click View All and see the entire enrollment request, including all 3 enrollment actions, in one big picture screen. Although this big enrollment request on one screen is pretty much impossible to read, I want to show it to you so you will get the idea for how this form is laid out in its entirety. The details don't really matter, especially because we've already seen them during the first 3 examples. The enrollment into Anthro 305 appears near the top of the page. The drop of Anthro 209 appears in the middle of the page. And the enrollment into Anthro 100 with related discussion appears near the bottom of the page. Enrollment request status. As we have seen, it is possible to bundle multiple enrollment actions into a single enrollment request by using the plus sign to create multiple enrollment actions for the same request. As we have also seen, the status near the top of the screen applies to all enrollments in the request. Here is a breakdown of the 4 status types that can appear for any enrollment request. Far and away, our favorite enrollment request status is success. Success means that all of our class enrollment actions were successful. Our second favorite enrollment request status is success messages. Success messages means that all class enrollments were successful, but there are messages regarding one or more of our enrollment actions. If you have chosen to bundle multiple enrollment actions in the same request, simply use the blue navigation bar to scroll through all the class enrollment action index cards to find the one or ones with messages. Far and away, our least favorite enrollment request status is errors found. Errors found means that one or more of the class enrollments had errors. If you have chosen to bundle multiple enrollment request actions into the same request, simply use the blue navigation bar to scroll through the class enrollment actions to find the action or actions with errors. I would like to point out that if you have multiple enrollment actions in the same request, any with errors do not affect the ones that were successful. One rotten apple does not spoil the whole bunch. Finally, it's worth noting that pending is also an enrollment request status. We will see it every single time that we do enrollment requests. Pending means that you have started one or more class enrollments, but the enrollment request form has not been submitted.